information follow-up statement on the South West 1 section planning for Action 9. For those of you who missed the piece on BBC Somerset Radio at 4:40 PM today about South West 1 and this discussion tonight, I'll repeat the primary concerns. From previous freedom of information disclosures, it cost this council around £500,000 to get into this controversial contract with IBM back in 2007. And I believe that it will cost at least that to get out of the contract and implement the succession option. The current project budget request before you tonight, I've just seen another paper, is about 100k, and I think that you can expect further costs, including a significant write-down of the main book value of sale. Back in 2005, the council decided from the outset that a large outsource of so-called back-office services in a joint venture was the right answer. The next 2.5 years are spent working backwards from an answer to try and make a viable business case. Please do not make that fundamental mistake again. Please do not rush into a preferred option early on in phase 1 without making sure that you have a clear view of what sort of council and what services you will be delivering in the future. This stage is currently referred to by the officers as the new operating model. If you don't know what sort of council you want to be, then how will you know what sort of IT you want to support this council, or what the best option is for delivering the IT needed? As soon as the elections are over, I hope that the new council will rapidly align the council shaping work with the new operating model with the phase 1 options appraisal. This came out strongly in scrutiny. It is for you as councillors to lead and guide the officers, not for the only preferred option to lead you. Clearly the original South West 1 business case was flawed, as no one modelled for static or falling budgets, and I believe the ridiculous claims by IBM of 192 million procurement savings were never ever there, good times or bad. All that really shows us is that predicting the complex and fast-changing real world in a fixed written contract for 10 years is next to impossible. I hope that a new administration will endorse the sensible and non-parochial sharing of offices with the County Council. The County Council has recently committed to capital budgets of £18 million for property, including a multi-user revamp of the County Hall site, which I think they need to rename, together with £12 million for the IT needed to support that. It would, in my view, be absurd for Taunton and West Somerset to go it alone or have a separate set of IT infrastructure and supplies. I do then support the government policy and this paper's premise that multi-sourcing with shorter and more manageable contracts is the best way forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Orr. Mr. Benham, please. Yeah. Sorry.
First round of these questions were raised at corporate scrutiny, and I've just seen some of the information here, so it's one of those things we need to digest. And also we got a reply as well, which is, well, it needs to be responded to as well. But I just wanted to point out question 1 was basically about paragraph 8.8 in the report. What was the level of cashable savings at the end of March, which is basically today, 2015? And what is the forecast cashable savings by the end of the contract, 2017? Then the next couple of questions, one's about working with West Somerset Council for the exit strategy. Will there be joint ICT working with Somerset County Council when Taunton Dean Borough Council relocates? What account has been taken up of the discussions between Avon and Somerset Police and Wiltshire? And I notice in paper item 30 later on that in fact that there's still no proper updates on what's happening between the Avon and Somerset Police and Wiltshire. What was the outcome of the partners' conference call, which was about the same issue? Will the review also include considering creating jobs in the local economy? And then I'll skip the next few questions. I'll just go to the final couple. Question 9, how much have you budgeted for the South West 1 exit strategy, not just the early phases? Question 10, can the research reports prepared by Professor Dexter Whitfield from the European Services Strategy Unit about Project ISIS becoming South West 1 be revisited for some lessons learned and planning for the future? Question 11, how will service users, council taxpayers, citizens, electors, community groups, staff trade unions be informed and consulted during phase 1 and any recommendations that emerge? And then finally, question 12, split up into 3, relates to item number 13 in the report about ICT and the South West 1 contract. Well, it says we continue to progress concerns in the ICT services in relation to capacity to deliver projects. concerns in the ICT services in relation to capacity to deliver projects, which projects have been affected, and what impact have the delays in the pricing of additional work had on service delivery and budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Mr. Devon, please.
Good evening to everyone. We came here last time, and now this time. Don't take it that it's going to be a repetitive occasion. But there's 3 points I want to raise. One is to do with the South West One contract, because I attend county council meetings, and now these meetings, and I find that it's an absolutely debacle. In other words, it's a proof that privatisation, if you like, seldom works, because it's been, on the county council, there's been repetitive controversy and criticism. It hasn't delivered what the prospectus set out to do. I think even John Osmond didn't leave for the council to say the 116 million savings that was planned was more like 16 rather than 116, and it's hardly likely to achieve the 16. So I expect some of you can remember the CSL contract that we had with Taunton Borough Council when I was a councillor, which turned out to be an absolute disaster as well. A lot of the work, as you know, with South West One has had to be taken back in-house. So the question is, why is it that you as councillors seem to have not really tracked this in any great detail? And in other words, the actual transparency, as far as you're concerned, seems to be very, very little. As far as the public is concerned, it hardly ever reaches a couple of lines in the local gazette. So the question is, why is it that you're allowing this sort of disaster to happen under your very noses, and very little is being done? I really thank Nigel and David for bringing it up at the County Council and here. My second point is to do with the nuclear programme manager, in that I think this person that's been appointed or upgraded, I hope they're going to concern themselves with how that vast amount of decimated countryside can be returned to its pristine condition that it was in before it was ravaged by all the bulldozers and diggers and all the rest of it. Because I don't know if you know, but as a condition of the Planning Commission, if Hinkley C does not go ahead, which it now looks unlikely because the Chinese are getting cold feet over it, and as you know, the French financing is also quivering on the brink. If it doesn't go ahead, the condition of planning is that that site has to be restored to that pristine condition it was in, badges and all. So I mean, this person that you're appointing as manager, could you put it as number one task on their desk? How much will it cost? How are we going to set about putting this planning condition into place if Hinkley C does not go ahead? The last point is to do with the electoral registration, and it's not down to any today bad performance or bad work, but I've been going around with Clive Martin, the parliamentary candidate for the Green Party, knocking on doors, and as you know, I've been involved in elections about the last 50 years, and I have never come across so much absenteeism on the register as far as people just not being registered. You go down the street, there's a whole set of houses, whole blocks of houses, nobody registered. All I can say to this council is, how are you going to set about seeing that the election on May the 7th is a democratic result? I'm standing in 2 local elections, and I just feel at the end of the day, if I were to win, big if obviously, but if I were to win, I wouldn't be able to say I had a democratic mandate, because although it might say the turnout was 60 or 65%, in reality it's probably about 40 or 45%, because in vast numbers of people just not registered. So please, can we tackle this problem as a council, as councillors? Thank you very much indeed, mate. Thank you.
Can I call upon Councillor Scott Williams, please, to reply?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, to Mr. Orr, I think the points he's raised have been covered in responses to the questions and statement he brought forward at corporate scrutiny, and also are contained within this report. If there are any areas he thinks have not been answered fully, then please could he let Mr Bryant know, and we will make further amendments to our responses. Mr Bean, the responses to questions 1 to 9, as you say, have been circulated. If you've got any further clarification you need on them, please again let Mr Bryant know so that we can work on them. The other questions I haven't been aware of previously, so could you please submit them in writing? And then to Mr Debenham, I would query that it has been an unmitigated disaster. In fact, I would thank officers for managing this complex contract during challenging and changing environment, and you can be assured that we will use those lessons learned when going through the succession planning process.
Thank you. Councillor Williams, would you like to say on clean electoral, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, fellow councillors, and thank Mr Debenham for coming and speaking to us. Always a pleasure, of course. And as for Hinkley, I could just say, Mr Mayor, that EDF are carrying this out totally at their own risk. If it does, for some unforeseeable reason, if it does not go ahead, they are contracted to return it to that pristine condition that Mr Debenham would like to see.
And Councillor Scott Williams, about the electoral question from Alan Debenham.
Mr Mayor, I'm sorry, I missed it. Should we ask him to repeat it? I was thinking about the answers to further questions.
Yeah, essentially what Alan Debenham was saying is that when he's been out canvassing, he's been surprised at how many absentee voters there are. In other words, haven't registered that particular property. He was asking whether that was going to be addressed by the council before we get to the elections on the 7th of May.
April the 20th is the deadline.
April the 20th, it says, is the deadline for registration.
By April the 20th.
Where were you canvassing on?
It's a voluntary course
Where were you
to register
canvassing?
for the elections. There have been a number of reminders that have gone out. People have gone around knocking on the doors. They've done everything they can to encourage people to register in Taunton D. If they've chosen not to do, then that is their choice, I feel.
Thank you.
It's against the law, it's £80 fine.
Moving on to item agenda 6, to receive any petitions or deputations from the Taunton electors under Standing Orders 16 and 17.
There are none to report, Mr Mayor.